Cardinals Conversations, and this one focuses on the 2020 St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame, and as always, the Hall of Fame presented by Edward Jones. And let's bring in Cardinals President Bill Dewitt III. I'm Dan McLaughlin. And Bill, before we get into talking about what the Hall of Fame has meant to you all these years and meant to the club and the fan base, just in a general sense, how are things going with you, your family, and just how things are going leading into what we all hope is a baseball season in 2020?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It's fine. Our family's good and safe, which is great. As you know, you sort of with quarantining, you end up with a lot of good family time. So we've enjoyed that, despite all the negativity out there in the world. That's been a silver lining, and hopefully that's been true of our Cardinal family as well.
Let's jump into the Hall of Fame. So the Cardinals Hall of Fame, presented by Edward Jones, began back in 2014. Has it been what you and your dad and the family and the front office all envisioned when you thought about putting together a Cardinals Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it really has, and we're so excited about how the kind of the calendar unfolds with these events. Like in the off season, we begin the voting, and then we have those red ribbon committee meetings right around the winter warm-up time, and then the fans start voting into the spring, and then you have your announcement, like kind of in the time frame we're in now, and then you look forward to that induction weekend. And I know we've always had fun watching Cooperstown induction ceremonies and the pattern of that, the milestone for those players every year, and the rhythm of it and the tradition of it. And I think we've really established that with our thing in a unique kind of way. It's all St. Louis. It's all about our guys. But you do see echoes of it in what Cooperstown started.
Do you have a favorite speech or a favorite moment? I've got my own personal one with Willie's speech. I thought it was priceless. But how about for you? Do you have one that stands out?
Willie's was a great one because he's such a humble guy, and he just doesn't like the limelight. and he had no choice. He had to be in the limelight and talk about himself and his career, which is probably like waterboarding for you and me. But that's why we love Willie. He's just so modest, and his genuineness came out. I think another one, total contrasting personality, was a Jim Edmonds, where he kind of went on but he talked a lot from the heart about sort of growing up and what baseball meant to him with his father and stuff. And another great one was McCarver. I mean, Tim, as you know, is broadcast partner, just so knowledgeable, so well-spoken, and so appreciative of the folks that got him to where he was in the game and is in the game. And so they've had all different types. And, the ones that I never really look forward to but always surprise me in a positive way are the family members of the veterans who go in. And because it's sort of like, they lived it usually, and they were such an important part of the Cardinal family when their father or grandfather was a star for the Cardinals. But then it just ends, and it's just over, and maybe they live somewhere else and they don't connect back with Cardinals baseball. So for some of those people that connect back in this ceremony, it's very touching, and they really, the emotion comes out.
What are the phone calls like when you guys have the opportunity to visit one-on-one and make that call to a player and tell them that they're headed to the Cardinals Hall of Fame? They're the first ones to find out, outside of those that know intimately inside the organization that are running this, you, your dad, others, but they find out with that phone call. What is that like?
Well, I only hear about it from my dad, who tells me after he makes the call, because he's been assigned that task. But it's funny because, you kind of envision somebody waiting by the phone, like what happens at Cooperstown, where they're either going to get a call or it's just going to be a sad waiting thing with no call. Well, our Hall of Famers, don't really, it's not like a defined date or time that you're going to find out. I mean, they know generally the week or whatever, but so when he's been calling them, it's come as a surprise. Like, oh, what's Bill DeWitt calling me for? And so there've been some good ones where he's gotten somebody and they just totally out of the blue go nuts. Didn't realize it was coming.
That's awesome. The moment they put on the red jacket, to me, it's so symbolic of just a culmination of their career in St. Louis or their life dedicated to the Cardinals. When you see that happen, what's going through your mind when you see every single time that red jacket so special in that moment when it goes on that individual?
It's different for each guy. For example, when I saw Edmonds put his on as an example, there was a sense that, it was just a continuation of how his career ended and it made sense. A guy like Scott Rowland, though, more recently, he put that red jacket on. It was almost like a great homecoming for him because he does live in this area, and he did go to some other teams after he was with us, and it was like a sort of a coming home. And I think for a lot of guys, it has that feel to it. Maybe they finished with the Cardinals, maybe they finished with other teams, but at the end of the day, there probably isn't a bigger Hall of Fame. Not to scratch our back too much, but short of Cooperstown, that a player would want to be in. So, and the way we've done it and hyped it and built this great museum and plaque hall with the Edward Jones Gallery, I think the level of sort of class and size of it and the hype it gets really puts these guys in a feeling that they've become Cardinals for life.
I'm not sure fans would understand, but how important the corporate partnership is in this type of event. And Edward Jones has stepped up from day one. How important are they to this association with the Hall of Fame?
Oh, huge! Because as we thought about designing this program, which we talked about a minute ago, the sequence of the committee and the voting and the announcements and the ceremonies and the homestand where we celebrate the history, and then we'll do a lot of museum events with these guys. Edward Jones has been there from day one, and the first day we pitched this to them, they kind of said, "Wow, this just matches like a glove with our brand. Deep St. Louis roots, going back over 100 years." And celebrating, they'd like to celebrate their history, and it just is a parallel, corporate initiative that really works for them and for us. I think also they've gotten into it in the sense that they have a couple people that sit in on the Red Ribbon Committees meetings, and so that they can report back to their folks about, yes, this is a legit process. There's, a real interest in getting this right by the organization, and at times we've gotten their help in terms of how to properly communicate this to our fans and to use fans to help us in the selection process. And I just can't say enough about how they've enjoyed this, because it matches up with their goals and values, but also helped us get to where we want to be and making this a great event.
And Bill, finally, I'll wrap it up with this. We'll have the announcement of the 2020 St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame presented by Edward Jones on Friday. And you can understand where people are so excited about that, but also curious about baseball. Do you have a message for the fan base out there right now that we're all wanting baseball? So do you have a message for those fans?
Yeah, I want it just as bad, if not more, as they do. We're working really hard on a plan. MLB is sort of driving that ship. It requires, as you know, first and foremost, safety protocols that everybody buys into, that make sense. Number two, working through all the logistics of pulling it off. And then three, working out an economic deal with the players. So MLB's working hard. They're keeping us posted. We're giving input as we can. As a club, Mo's been very active on the protocols, for example, because he knows he's been around a long time, knows how all this works and how we might have to modify to make this work. And so fingers are crossed that we can get a half a season and then playoffs, which would be just great for the sport, great for our fans. And who knows, maybe we'll get a miracle and actually have a fan or two in the building later in the year.
That would be awesome, and people want to hear that. Fingers crossed is right. Bill, again, congratulations on another great year with the 2020 Cardinals Hall of Fame presented by Edward Jones. We're looking forward to the announcement on Friday. Stay safe, stay healthy, and thanks for doing this. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate all your hard work and making this a great show as well.
You bet. That's Bill Dewitt. I'm Dan McLaughlin. Cardinals Conversations presented by Edward Jones.